Well, Saturday was also a great day, just like Friday, with one dark spot, and I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you about that later. Most of the day couldn't have been better. Uh, when they got came out of the hall upstairs, looked down here, Lance had already gotten up. As a matter of fact, Lance had he'd gotten up early. He was using two canes now that Violet had, and he could walk without the walker, without the wheelchair, but with these two canes. And he had been walking around in the living room, looking at he was fascinated by the books that Violet had on her shelf. And he'd also got on the exercise bike himself. He'd probably been up an hour, and he'd worked on that. He was feeling real good. Well, they came down, had breakfast, and at breakfast, Yeoman broke the news that he couldn't really stay very long. He was real happy to see his mom and his niece and sleep in the room that he'd had as a boy. But he had to get back to Brooklyn. He'd come down partly because, you see, Richland has two newspapers, and one of the newspapers had managed to get a hold of Yeoman and asked if they could interview him. And he was interested anyway, so he'd come down, and he was going to be there for the opening, which was Saturday. They had been to a kind of a pre-opening, but this was going to be the real thing, and he'd be there, and they wanted to interview him. So he was going to go, and after that he had to go back to Brooklyn. So after breakfast they'd be saying goodbye. Now Violet explained it. She had a plan for today, just as she had for yesterday. And it was going to start at the North Virginia Museum of Fine Arts and Crafts, where what they'd gone by yesterday. She told the people that came out that she'd probably stop by and see him Saturday, and so she would. And she wanted to see their collection a little bit, but they weren't going to take the wheelchair. As a matter of fact, today was going to be wheelchair free, to see if they could get Lance away from it, and they thought they could, and he was all up for that, trying that. So they were going to take Violet's car. They'd drive there, they'd spend some time there. Then Violet had an outing that she wanted a little bit further than before. She'd take the car, and she said, I'll tell you where we're going. It's a place I'm almost certain you'll like. We're going to go to the Richard Schultes Botanical Garden. It's a little ways out of town, on the east side of town, northeast side of town, and I think you're really going to like it. And there you can do lots of walking, and that'll be the main event. So, and we need to get back in time. We'll have a picnic there. We'll do our walking, and we'll get back in time so that Mandy can get off to her job for the second time. That's the plan.